You know, one of the great tragedies of modern relationships is that so many men, as they age, start to feel a growing resentment or at least a fading affection toward their wives. And it's not because they're bad people or because love is some fleeting illusion. It's because there are fundamental practical realities at play, realities that no one ever teaches us to confront. See, relationships aren't built on mere feelings. They're built on responsibility, on sacrifice, on growth. And when those things start to falter, when men feel like they're no longer valued, or when they've lost themselves in the grind of life, a discontent starts to creep in. And that's dangerous because resentment can rot even the strongest bonds from the inside out. So today, let's break this down. Let's talk about why this happens, why so many men feel this way, and more importantly, what can be done to prevent it. Because if we don't face these realities, if we don't understand what's at stake, then we risk losing something truly irreplaceable. Over time, men enter relationships with certain expectations, both spoken and unspoken, about how love, companionship, and mutual support will unfold. In the early stages, there's often a natural excitement, a sense of appreciation, and a willingness to invest in one another emotionally. However, as life progresses, reality sets in. Work stress, financial burdens, and family responsibilities start to dominate daily life. The time and effort once devoted to maintaining the connection gradually diminish. Many men begin to feel that their efforts go unnoticed, that their sacrifices are taken for granted. They may have envisioned a partnership where both individuals continue to grow together, supporting each other in meaningful ways. Yet, instead, they find themselves trapped in a cycle of mundane obligations and unfulfilled emotional needs. They start questioning whether their role in the relationship is truly valued or merely expected. When a man feels like his needs, be it affection, respect, or simple recognition, are consistently overlooked, frustration begins to build. He may not vocalize it immediately, choosing instead to suppress his emotions in an attempt to maintain peace. But over time, that suppression transforms into quiet resentment, a slow-burning dissatisfaction that erodes the foundation of the relationship. In the early stages of a relationship, admiration and appreciation come naturally. Compliments flow effortlessly, small gestures are acknowledged, and there is an ongoing effort to make the other person feel valued. However, as time goes on, familiarity often breeds complacency. What was once exciting and special becomes routine, and the expressions of gratitude that once strengthened the bond begin to fade. Men, in particular, thrive on feeling respected and appreciated in their roles as providers, protectors, and partners. When these acknowledgments lessen, it can create a profound sense of neglect. A man may work long hours, take on financial burdens, and make sacrifices for the well-being of his family, yet feel as though his efforts are barely noticed. When he comes home at the end of a long day and is met with indifference instead of appreciation, it can slowly chip away at his enthusiasm for the relationship. Furthermore, when a man feels that his contributions, whether emotional, financial, or practical, are taken for granted, he may start to withdraw. He may stop putting in the effort to be romantic or communicative because he feels that no matter what he does, it won't be acknowledged. This withdrawal can lead to a growing emotional distance between him and his wife, creating a silent but significant divide. When men enter marriage or long-term relationships, they often do so with a strong sense of purpose. They take on the role of a provider, protector, and partner with a vision of building a life together. However, as the years pass, many men find themselves slowly losing their sense of personal identity. Their ambitions, passions, and personal growth take a back seat to the responsibilities of maintaining a household, raising children, and ensuring financial stability. This gradual shift can lead to an internal conflict. A man who once had clear goals and a strong sense of self may start to feel as though he has become nothing more than a function of his responsibilities. He might have once dreamed of pursuing creative passions, starting a business, or traveling the world, but now finds himself consumed by the daily grind. When a man feels that his individuality has been swallowed by the demands of his relationship, resentment can start to build. Additionally, some men may feel that their wives, who once admired their ambitions and drive, now see them primarily as a means of security, rather than as individuals with evolving dreams and desires. The qualities that once made him attractive, his confidence, independence, and adventurous spirit may have been replaced with a perception of him as merely a provider. If he starts to feel that his personal aspirations no longer matter, or that his role is purely functional, he may begin to detach emotionally from the relationship. In the beginning of a relationship, emotional connection is strong. There are deep conversations, shared dreams, and a constant effort to understand one another. Over time, however, as life becomes more demanding, this emotional connection often begins to erode. Work stress, financial concerns, and the responsibilities of parenting or maintaining a household take precedence, leaving little time for meaningful communication. What was once a relationship built on emotional intimacy gradually shifts into a more practical partnership, where conversations revolve around schedules, bills, and daily responsibilities rather than personal thoughts, feelings, and aspirations. Men, by nature, often struggle with expressing emotions openly. If a man feels that his emotional needs are not being met, he may not always articulate it. Instead, he withdraws, burying his feelings beneath a surface of silence or indifference. This emotional disconnection can create a growing distance between him and his wife, even if they continue to function as a couple in other areas of life. He may start to feel isolated, as though his inner world is no longer shared or understood by his partner. When emotional intimacy fades, so does the sense of closeness that once made the relationship fulfilling. A man may find himself craving deeper connection but feel unsure of how to restore it. If efforts to communicate are met with disinterest or dismissed as unnecessary, he may stop trying altogether. The absence of emotional closeness can make interactions feel transactional rather than meaningful, further reinforcing a sense of detachment. Every relationship faces conflicts, but what determines the strength and longevity of that relationship is how those conflicts are handled. In the early stages, couples often go out of their way to resolve disagreements quickly, prioritizing harmony over stubbornness. But as years pass, unresolved conflicts tend to accumulate, creating an undercurrent of resentment that quietly builds beneath the surface. Many men struggle with addressing ongoing issues, especially when they feel that their concerns are dismissed or minimized. If he expresses frustration about something repeatedly and sees no change, he may start to believe that voicing his concerns is pointless. Over time, he learns to suppress his grievances rather than engage in discussions that seem to go nowhere. But unresolved frustrations do not simply disappear. They turn into resentment, which eventually manifests in subtle but damaging ways. This resentment can surface in different forms: emotional withdrawal, passive-aggressive behavior, or a general lack of enthusiasm toward the relationship. A man may no longer engage in meaningful conversations, stop making romantic gestures, or avoid spending time with his wife altogether. Small, everyday annoyances that once seemed trivial may now feel like unbearable irritations. Another common pattern is that unresolved conflicts lead to repetitive arguments over the same issues, with neither partner feeling heard or validated. A man may feel trapped in a cycle where nothing ever gets resolved, leading to a sense of hopelessness about the relationship. When conflicts are swept under the rug rather than addressed constructively, they continue to grow in the background, slowly chipping away at the bond that once held the relationship together. As relationships progress, the practical responsibilities of life begin to take center stage. In the early years, romance is effortless dates, spontaneous gestures, and deep conversations come naturally. However, as time goes on, financial responsibilities, work pressures, household duties, and parenting demands start to dominate daily interactions. The emotional and romantic aspects of the relationship take a back seat to logistical concerns, making it difficult to maintain the same level of intimacy and connection. Men in particular often feel the burden of being the primary provider, which can create significant stress. The pressure to ensure financial security, pay bills, and plan for the future can become overwhelming. Over time, this stress can make a man feel less emotionally available as his mental energy is consumed by problem solving and long-term planning. He may become more focused on fulfilling obligations rather than nurturing the emotional and romantic side of the relationship. Additionally, when romance becomes secondary to responsibilities, interactions between a husband and wife can begin to feel more like business transactions than expressions of love and affection. Conversations revolve around what needs to be done, who will pick up the kids, what bills need to be paid, and what household chores are pending. The warmth and excitement that once characterized their relationship are replaced by a sense of duty and obligation. Another factor that contributes to this shift is the lack of quality time spent together. When both partners are caught up in their individual responsibilities, they may unintentionally neglect each other's emotional and physical needs. Even if they live under the same roof, they may start to feel like distant roommates, rather than a couple deeply connected in love and companionship. The fading affection and growing resentment that many men experience toward their wives as they get older is not a mystery. It is a consequence of unmet expectations, lack of appreciation, identity loss, emotional disconnection, unresolved conflict, and the overwhelming weight of responsibilities. These challenges don't arise overnight. They build gradually, often unnoticed, until they become too big to ignore. But this outcome is not inevitable. Relationships, like anything valuable in life, require maintenance, effort, and a willingness to adapt. The key is awareness, understanding why these feelings emerge and taking proactive steps to address them before they turn into deep-seated resentment. Open communication, mutual appreciation, emotional intimacy, and a conscious effort to keep the romance alive can make all the difference. A marriage is not meant to be a slow decline into emotional distance. It is meant to be a partnership that evolves, where both individuals continue to grow together rather than apart. And if men and women recognize the practical realities of why love fades, they can also find practical ways